Australia's security allies that make up the Five Eyes group are reportedly in talks on how to help the Australian government respond to China's aggressive trade tactics. The Chinese state media outlet, which made that Cole announcement, is warning that any collective action would backfire on all the countries involved. Here's Professor Susan Shirk, the chair of 21st Century China Centre at the University of California. Susan, thanks so much for being with us. So as Steffi there was saying, it's not just coal, it's wine, barley, rock lobster. What sort of action are the Five Eyes group considering?
Well, I really don't know what the Five Eyes are considering. Of course, this is an intelligence sharing coalition. It did organize to make a statement about Hong Kong, which is venturing away from intelligence more into policy, but I'm not sure whether or not Five Eyes will make a statement about the way Beijing has been punishing Australia for what it says are a number of statements and actions, including by non-governmental organizations that Beijing doesn't like.
But could it go, excuse me, further than a statement of support? Would you anticipate actual action being taken, for example, on tariffs of Chinese goods?
Well, I'm not sure. Of course, what is important is that Australia's friends, allies, other democracies stand by in support of Australia, because this treatment by Beijing is really quite unusual. It's much more extreme than other types of sanctions, economic sanctions that have been employed by Beijing on other countries, related mainly to disputes related to Chinese sovereignty. What's exceptional and really pretty outrageous and highly coercive in this case is that the punishment is not just in regard to some sovereignty issues, but it's just in regard to Australia calling for an international investigation of the origins of the COVID pandemic.
So what's your view of China's endgame, if you like, in taking these actions?
Well, I have to tell you that China hands like me, we have been talking among ourselves, and we're rather mystified as to why Beijing is taking such an extreme position vis-a-vis Australia. It may be trying to intimidate other Asian countries, warning them to stay on the good side of China's important issues, or it may be testing whether or not Australia and its allies like the United States are able to work together to resist China's coercive diplomacy.
Yeah, so what would the US, Canada, New Zealand and the UK gain, in your view, in supporting Australia in its trade war with China? Because those countries also trade with China. There, as you've alluded to, there is a danger in poking the bear.
Well, yes, but on the other hand, China is a big, important economy. It has a lot of market power, and I think it is important not to allow China to use this market power to intimidate other countries on what are just happen to be sensitive issues in Chinese domestic politics. These are not normal issues in international relations. So at some point, countries really need to stand together as a matter of principle and to discourage China from continuing to behave so coercively.
So what has started out as a trade issue could change and evolve, and is really now, I guess, one of security.
Well, it really, I don't think it started as a trade issue. It's really For China, these are domestic political issues. The whole question of the origin of COVID has become a very sensitive domestic political issue in China. Xi Jinping is quite defensive about the missteps and the cover-up at the early stage. And they're treating it as almost as much of a core issue, what they call a core issue, meaning an issue related to sovereignty that they would be willing to fight to defend, like Taiwan or Hong Kong or Tibet or Xinjiang. Now the whole question of the origin of COVID has become something of a core issue.
And we've heard the Global Times, that's the Chinese state media outlet, they've warned the Five Eyes alliance that any plotting against China would backfire against them. Could China take similar actions against the US, Canada, etc., as they have against Australia? And is this a sign that China's really worried about what might happen?
Well, yes, but let's remember the Global Times is not the Chinese Foreign Ministry. And they always like to take the more extreme nationalist position. So let's see what the Chinese government decides to do. Hopefully, especially at a time like this, when the United States is in transition to a new administration, that Xi Jinping should hope will be dealing with him in a more practical and less confrontational manner. This is not exactly the way to encourage that through this kind of coercive diplomacy against Australia. But remember, not just Australia, Canada holding Canadian hostages and South Korea. So other countries have borne the brunt of this kind of coercive diplomacy as well.
Professor Susan Shirk, thank you so much.
Sure.